Every range has a unique identification based upon its row and columns, but we don't really think about data like that, and remembering a group of cells can be difficult. Not to mention, when reading a formula, reading sum $A $4 colon $C $4 means really nothing without going and looking at A4 through C4 to see what it references. Thankfully, we can assign names to specific ranges. Named ranges are simply a group of cells that have been assigned a unique name given the context. You've encountered a few named ranges in this course so far. I used named ranges in the zoo example for the lookup chapter to make my functions look just a little bit nicer. The first step for understanding the usage of named ranges is to understand their intention. Named ranges are for identifying important groups of data that belong together. For an example, let's refer to that zoo example again. Here in Formula View, you can see that I refer to Z animals and Z zoos rather than normal Excel ranges. Each of these is a named range that I've defined on my Data Example tab. Z animals refers to the range A5 to A22 on my Data Example tab, while the Z zoos range refers to B4 through Z4. If I copy this formula, paste it, and replace the names with those ranges, my result is unchanged. In this case, my named ranges make my formula easier to read. I know that I'm performing a match on zoo and on animals. I can improve it even more by adding other named ranges to the point where all of the cells have a meaningful name, however that isn't always reasonable or useful. On the Data Example tab, I can see my list of simple defined names by clicking on the Named Range box to the top left of my worksheet just below the ribbon. As a bit of trivia, this is the only part of the Excel user interface that cannot be directly accessed using the keyboard. Disappointing, right? Anyhow, you can see that I have 5 ranges named. We'll talk about how to create them later, and I can select any one of them and instantly select that range. I can also use my F5 hotkey to see my list of names, and I can double-click on a named range or type one in and press enter to select it just like with the drop-down. You can see here that I have Z zoo data. I could use this to replace my index component. If I modify the formula on my summary to replace B5 through Z22, if I go to the data example and select this range and drag and select it, the named range automatically replaces the address. Excel, whenever it can detect a name for a range, will automatically use the name instead of the standard address. Now, named ranges come in a few different varieties. You can have workbook level named ranges, which is a name that can be used anywhere in the workbook and refers to a single specific set of cells within the workbook as a whole, or alternatively, you can have a worksheet level name that only applies within that specific worksheet. For example, I could have a worksheet name zlocal on each worksheets with different definitions within the worksheets. Finally, either type of name can be either static or dynamic. Static name ranges refer to a specific group of cells. All of the names in this workbook are static. A dynamic named range actually calculates a range based upon a formula. Imagine that you could have a range Z dynamic zoos that provides you with a different range of cells depending upon how it calculates. In this chapter, I'll teach you how to define, manage, and use names in a variety of different ways. This will be a fairly short chapter, however it will be expanded upon and used for the following chapters where we will learn about the dynamic formulas and how to create charts and graphs using named ranges.